What happens when a father finally decides he can no longer remain silent about his daughter's life? Imagine the weight of decades of secrecy, frustration, and heartbreak, all compressed into a moment where truth, emotion, and revelation collide. Thomas Markle, the father of one of the world's most famous women, has finally stepped forward, and what he shared has sent shockwaves across the globe. In the next hour, you're going to hear stories, details, and confessions that no one expected. Stories that reveal not just the public figure we know as Meghan Markle, but the young woman behind the headlines, the daughter, the sister, and the human being who made life-altering decisions at a startlingly young age. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. For years, Thomas has been portrayed in the media as a shadowy figure, a father estranged from his daughter, constantly criticized, ridiculed, and even mocked. Yet, behind the tabloid covers and viral headlines lies a man with profound insights, experiences, and frustrations. And it is from this unique vantage point that he has chosen to speak, finally. But why now? Why break the silence after all these years? The timing, he says, is critical. He observed patterns, watched the media distort facts, and witnessed events unfold that compelled him to step forward. His revelations are not mere gossip. They are a father's attempt to set the record straight, to offer context, and perhaps to find some measure of closure. The first revelation, shocking enough to make headlines worldwide, concerns a deeply personal medical decision Meghan reportedly made at the age of 19, a hysterectomy. Pause for a moment. Imagine being 19. Life is supposed to be full of possibilities, uncertainty, and dreams yet to be formed. Instead, there is a choice of monumental personal and physical consequence, a decision that would affect the trajectory of one's entire life. The emotional complexity of such a decision is almost unimaginable. How did she cope? What motivated her? And why has this remained hidden for so long? Thomas reveals that the decision was not made lightly, nor without profound personal and family implications. It was, in his words, a pivotal moment that shaped her path, influenced her relationships, and even affected her perception in the eyes of the public. The hysterectomy is not just a medical procedure. It is a symbol, a flashpoint that illuminates deeper truths about Meghan's resilience, independence, and the intense pressures she faced even before stepping onto the global stage. But beyond the medical revelation, Thomas shares insights into Meghan's early life that few have ever heard. The family dynamics, the struggles, the formative experiences that molded her character. All of these elements converge to paint a picture far more intricate and human than the media narrative has ever allowed. There is the story of her childhood home, the silent sacrifices her parents made, and the moments of vulnerability that would later define her strength. Each anecdote is layered with emotion, sometimes tinged with pain, other times with humor, and always compelling in its authenticity. Imagine being inside the Markle household during those formative years. A father who loves his children, yet struggles with communication, expectations, and his own personal challenges. A young girl navigating adolescence, dreams, and ambitions, all while contending with the quiet weight of familial tension and the external pressures of a world that seemed poised to watch her every move. It is in this environment that Meghan made her choices, some of which remain hidden from public knowledge until now. Thomas also emphasizes the impact of public life on personal identity. The scrutiny, the headlines, the relentless commentary from social media and tabloids. These forces are not abstract. They shape decisions, influence behaviors, and create pressures that are difficult to comprehend unless you live them. He describes watching his daughter transform under these pressures, a journey marked by courage but also by immense personal cost. There were moments when he worried for her well-being, moments when he questioned whether the world truly understood who she was beneath the public persona. The revelation about the hysterectomy at 19 is intertwined with these larger themes. It is not merely about a medical procedure. It is about agency, autonomy, and the complex interplay of personal choice and societal expectation. Thomas frames this decision within a broader narrative of challenges faced by his daughter, the struggle for independence, the navigation of public and private life, and the continual balancing act between personal health and public perception. And yet, even in sharing these deeply personal details, Thomas does not aim to sensationalize. He is careful, deliberate, and heartfelt, conveying both pride and concern, admiration and sadness. Each statement, each reflection, carries weight. It is the kind of testimony that draws viewers in, makes them pause, and forces them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about Meghan Markle. But this is only the beginning. As Thomas continues to speak, he begins to reveal layers of complexity. Family estrangements, moments of misunderstanding, decisions made under duress, and the intricate dance between public image and private reality. There are stories of resilience, tales of conflict, and instances of unexpected humor that humanize a figure often seen only through the lens of fame and scandal. Questions arise naturally. How did these early decisions influence her relationships later in life? What role did family pressures play in shaping her path? And how does she reconcile these past experiences with the present under the unrelenting gaze of the world? Each answer offered by Thomas is a revelation. Each anecdote a piece of a puzzle that slowly begins to make sense, but with enough mystery left to keep the audience hooked. The introduction sets the stage for the deeper exploration that follows. We are not just witnessing a father's account. We are stepping into a world of hidden truths, emotional complexity, and human vulnerability. The hysterectomy revelation at 19 serves as both an entry point and a symbol for the broader narrative. The unseen challenges, the private struggles, and the profound courage that have defined Meghan Markle's life. As the story unfolds, Thomas delves deeper into the private world behind Meghan's public persona. He recounts moments of personal struggle, hidden fears, and the emotional weight of living under constant scrutiny. For someone who grew up in relative normalcy, Meghan's trajectory into fame and royalty brought extraordinary challenges. Thomas describes the balancing act between her desire for independence and the limitations imposed by family, media, and societal expectations. The hysterectomy at 19, he emphasizes, was not an isolated event. It was part of a continuum of personal decisions shaped by circumstances, ambition, and the desire to take control of her own life. Thomas paints a vivid picture of the young Meghan navigating early adulthood with maturity beyond her years. She faced pressures that most 19-year-olds could never imagine, navigating personal health choices, dealing with familial expectations, and slowly understanding the complexities of the world around her. Her decisions, though private, were invariably influenced by the wider context of her life, a life that would later be projected onto an international stage. These early experiences, Thomas explains, shaped her resilience, her public demeanor, and her capacity for handling both criticism and adulation. He also reflects on the emotional impact these revelations may have on the public perception of Meghan. For many, the notion of a young woman making such a life-altering medical decision is shocking, even controversial. But Thomas urges viewers to see beyond the headlines. This isn't about scandal or gossip, he says. It's about understanding the choices someone makes when no one is watching, when the stakes are personal and profound. By framing the story in human terms, he seeks to bridge the gap between public image and private reality, inviting the audience to empathize rather than judge. The narrative then shifts to the father-daughter relationship, which Thomas admits has been complicated. Misunderstandings, missed communications, and public narratives that often misrepresent reality have created a distance that both parties feel deeply. He shares anecdotes of heartfelt conversations, moments of reconciliation, and instances where emotional vulnerability broke through the barriers of fame and pride. These personal stories lend depth and texture to the account, making it relatable and emotionally compelling. Throughout the introduction, Thomas weaves in reflections on broader societal issues, the pressures of growing up in the public eye, the expectations placed on young women, and the challenges of making autonomous decisions under scrutiny. He emphasizes that Meghan's choices, including the hysterectomy, are emblematic of larger themes: agency, resilience, and the struggle to define oneself amidst external pressures. This framing not only contextualizes the revelations, but also provides viewers with a lens through which to understand the significance of each disclosure. To maintain engagement, Thomas introduces elements of suspense and foreshadowing. He hints at further revelations, stories of family conflict, and unexpected details about Meghan's early career, relationships, and personal life. Each hint is carefully calibrated to create curiosity without fully resolving the questions, ensuring that viewers remain emotionally invested and eager to learn more. He also uses rhetorical questions to involve the audience. Can you imagine making a choice like this at 19, knowing the world may never understand? How would you handle it? The introduction balances emotional depth with narrative pacing. Short, punchy sentences convey urgency and drama, while longer, descriptive passages allow viewers to absorb context and emotion. Thomas intersperses humor, candid reflections, and poignant observations, creating a dynamic storytelling rhythm that keeps the audience engaged. The introduction also sets up a clear narrative trajectory, from early life and personal decisions to family dynamics and public perception. Each element builds anticipation for the detailed chapters to follow. As the introduction draws to a close, Thomas underscores the stakes. The revelations are not merely sensational. They have personal, familial, and social implications. He stresses that understanding these truths requires empathy, patience, and attention to nuance. The audience is left with a sense of anticipation, knowing that the next chapters will delve even deeper into hidden decisions, emotional conflicts, and the private experiences that shape the public figure. And just as the audience begins to process the gravity of the hysterectomy revelation and early life struggles, Thomas leaves them on a final cliffhanger for the introduction. But what I'm about to reveal next goes beyond health, family, or fame. It's a truth that will make you see everything you thought you knew about Meghan in a completely new light. Every story has a beginning, but some beginnings are hidden beneath layers of assumption, speculation, and silence. For Thomas Markle, the father of one of the world's most famous women, his story has largely remained untold. To understand the revelations he is now sharing, one must first step into his world, a world shaped by personal ambition, family struggles, and the complicated dynamics of raising a daughter destined for extraordinary scrutiny. Thomas's life before Meghan entered the public eye was not one of royalty or relentless media attention. He lived a relatively ordinary life, balancing professional responsibilities, family obligations, and personal aspirations. But even in these early years, Thomas displayed qualities that would later define his approach to fatherhood, a mixture of protection, pride, and a desire to see his children succeed. He often faced challenges common to many parents: financial pressures, work-life balance, and the complexities of guiding children through formative experiences. But he did so under a microscope of public curiosity once Meghan became a public figure. As Thomas recounts, the birth of Meghan marked a profound shift in his life. It was not just the arrival of a child. It was the arrival of someone whose future would be extraordinary, whose decisions would ripple far beyond the family home. From the earliest days, he watched her intelligence, charisma, and determination emerge, noticing traits that hinted at the woman she would become. These observations were filled with pride, but also with the early recognition that the world could be both inspiring and unforgiving. Yet, Thomas's story is not just one of parental pride. It is also a story of struggle. He faced personal and professional setbacks that shaped his character and influenced how he approached fatherhood. These experiences, he explains, contributed to a complicated emotional landscape where love, concern, and frustration coexisted. The media often overlooked these facets of his life, choosing instead to focus on sensationalized narratives that painted him as distant or antagonistic. Thomas now seeks to set the record straight, revealing a man whose life has been marked by both triumph and challenge, whose perspective offers critical context to the revelations about Meghan. A central theme of Thomas's untold story is his relationship with Meghan during her formative years. He shares candid anecdotes about the challenges of raising a child with immense curiosity, drive, and emotional sensitivity. There were moments of joy, laughter, and familial bonding, but also moments of conflict, misunderstanding, and distance. Thomas reflects on the difficulty of navigating these complexities, especially in a family dynamic where communication sometimes faltered and expectations occasionally clashed. The narrative then delves into specific instances that illustrate the depth of their relationship. He recounts stories from family vacations, school milestones, and private moments that reveal a father's deep love for his daughter. Yet, these stories are juxtaposed with accounts of emotional distance, missed opportunities for connection, and misunderstandings that would later amplify the public perception of estrangement. The contrast between intimate family life and public narrative underscores the complexity of Thomas's role and the challenge of balancing parental guidance with respect for a child's autonomy. Thomas also addresses the role of media in shaping public perception. He describes the early experiences of seeing his family portrayed in ways that felt inaccurate, sometimes cruel, and often devoid of context. Headlines, he notes, created an alternate narrative, one that obscured the nuances of their relationships and amplified misinterpretations. These experiences influenced his decision to remain largely silent for years, as he weighed the risks of speaking out against the potential for misunderstanding. Throughout this chapter, Thomas emphasizes the importance of context and perspective. His untold story is not intended as a defense, nor as an attack. It is an effort to provide insight into a complex family dynamic, to share experiences that have long been overshadowed by media frenzy and public speculation. He aims to humanize both himself and Meghan, highlighting the interplay of love, conflict, and personal growth that defines any parent-child relationship, albeit under extraordinary circumstances. To maintain engagement, the chapter includes moments of suspense and foreshadowing. Thomas hints at later revelations regarding Meghan's personal decisions, health choices, and family conflicts. Each anecdote serves a dual purpose: to illustrate his perspective while also planting seeds of curiosity about the events and decisions that will be explored in subsequent chapters. Rhetorical questions invite viewers to reflect. How does a father navigate love and concern when the world seems determined to misinterpret every word? What pressures shape the choices of a young woman destined for global attention? The chapter also intersperses emotional highs and lows. Moments of warmth, laughter, shared memories, expressions of pride, contrast sharply with instances of tension and regret. This emotional rhythm keeps the audience invested, allowing them to connect personally with Thomas's experience, while anticipating the more dramatic revelations that follow. Early life. He recalls moments that seem small in isolation. A shared joke, a quiet word of advice, a school event. But together they form the emotional tapestry of a family navigating both ordinary life and extraordinary circumstances. These moments, he notes, were often overshadowed by public narratives, misrepresentations, and the unrelenting scrutiny that would later define Meghan's life. Thomas shares candid reflections on the challenges of parenting a child with exceptional drive and ambition. Meghan's curiosity and independence, while admirable, sometimes created friction. Decisions that might seem trivial, what career path to pursue, how to spend her time, or which opportunities to accept, became sources of debate, tension, and even misunderstanding. Thomas acknowledges that disagreements, however small, were magnified by the public attention they later received. Every choice, every misstep, every triumph became fodder for speculation, amplifying the pressures on both father and daughter. One of the most revealing aspects Thomas emphasizes is the delicate balance between guidance and autonomy. As a parent, he wanted to protect Meghan, guide her, and provide support, but he also recognized the importance of allowing her to make her own decisions. This tension, he explains, is universal to parenting, but the stakes were higher given Meghan's later visibility. The interplay between love and restraint, between advice and autonomy, would influence not only their relationship, but also the decisions Meghan made as she entered adulthood. A particularly poignant moment Thomas recalls is the period when Meghan was approaching adulthood. It was a time of exploration, self-discovery, and critical decision-making. He describes witnessing her wrestle with complex choices, including matters of personal health, relationships, and career. The hysterectomy, he reveals, was a decision made in this formative period, a decision she faced privately, grappling with its implications and long-term consequences. Thomas portrays this choice as emblematic of Meghan's strength and independence. a young woman confronting profound personal questions while navigating the uncertainty of life on the brink of adulthood. Thomas also highlights the emotional toll of secrecy and misrepresentation. Being a parent in the age of relentless media scrutiny is unlike any other form of parenting. Every miscommunication, every private argument, every personal decision can be magnified and distorted. He explains how this environment affected both him and Meghan, how it fostered caution, sometimes mistrust, and the need for careful navigation of public and private spheres. The tension created by this dual existence is palpable, a theme that resonates throughout the story and sets the stage for the revelations that follow. Humor, surprisingly, also plays a role in the narrative. Thomas recalls moments where levity cut through tension, where a shared laugh became a refuge from misunderstanding or stress. These anecdotes humanize both father and daughter. The chapter further explores Thomas's reflections on fame, perception, and misunderstanding. He explains how public narratives often simplified or distorted the truth, turning nuanced family dynamics into one-dimensional stories. By telling his untold story, he seeks to provide context, humanize experiences, and offer insight into the decisions Meghan made. Decisions that, while deeply personal, were influenced by the complex interplay of love, pressure, and circumstance. As the chapter builds toward its climax, Thomas hints at the more dramatic aspects of Meghan's life, hidden struggles, personal sacrifices, and choices that would later define her trajectory. He teases events and revelations that will be fully explored in subsequent chapters, creating anticipation and emotional investment for the audience. Each hint serves as a bridge, connecting the personal history to the shocking disclosures that follow, including the hysterectomy, family conflicts, and media scrutiny. The chapter closes with a reflective yet suspenseful note. Thomas emphasizes the importance of understanding context, recognizing resilience, and appreciating the complexity of human decisions. He leaves the audience with a lingering question. How does a young woman navigate profound personal choices while preparing to step onto a global stage? And more importantly, how do these choices shape her identity, her relationships, and her legacy? But what Thomas revealed next would go beyond childhood stories or parental insight. It would expose the hidden layers of Meghan's early adulthood, choices made in privacy, and consequences that no one outside the family had ever fully understood. The stage is set for the next chapter, where the audience will discover the personal decisions and secret struggles that define Meghan Markle's journey in ways the world has never seen. As Thomas Markle continues, the story shifts from the mere fact of the procedure to the emotional and familial consequences that followed. The hysterectomy at 19 was more than a medical decision. It was a turning point in Meghan's life that reverberated through her relationships, her sense of self, and the way she navigated the world. Thomas reflects on the delicate balance between protecting his daughter and respecting her autonomy, and the tension this created within the family. Thomas recalls the immediate aftermath of the decision. Meghan handled the situation with a level of maturity that astonished him. She understood the gravity, consulted medical professionals thoroughly, and took the time to process the implications for her health, relationships, and future goals. Yet, the secrecy surrounding such a personal matter was inevitable. Thomas notes that, at the time, discussing the decision openly, even within the family, was emotionally charged. Privacy was paramount, yet the choice itself became a silent force, shaping interactions, expectations, and perceptions for years to come. Family reactions were complex. While Thomas expresses pride in Meghan's independence, he also acknowledges the emotional challenges. Her mother, Doria Ragland, played a pivotal role in supporting Meghan's decision, offering empathy and guidance. Thomas, as her father, grappled with concern, admiration, and the instinct to protect. He reflects on the nuanced dynamics. The push and pull of parental concern versus respect for autonomy. The tension of wanting to guide while recognizing that this was a choice only Meghan could make. The hysterectomy, Thomas emphasizes, also influenced Meghan's sense of identity. Decisions surrounding her reproductive health at a young age were not merely medical. They were deeply personal and emotional. Thomas shares that Meghan experienced moments of contemplation, introspection, and even vulnerability, which shaped her understanding of independence and resilience. These experiences, he suggests, contributed to her later poise, her capacity for handling scrutiny, and her determination to define her own narrative amidst external pressures. Media speculation, although it came later, is another critical aspect. Thomas discusses how public perception has a tendency to distort private choices, turning personal health decisions into sensationalized narratives. He stresses that understanding Meghan's choice requires empathy and context. It was made responsibly, thoughtfully, and in alignment with her values. By framing the hysterectomy within the broader context of her early life, Thomas encourages viewers to consider the human story behind the headlines rather than accepting the simplified or judgmental narratives often circulated by media outlets. The chapter also explores the connection between Meghan's personal choices and her professional ambitions. Thomas recalls how her early maturity and autonomy, exemplified by decisions like the hysterectomy, translated into her career. She approached challenges with calculated risk, resilience, and a strong sense of self. These qualities enabled her to navigate a competitive acting industry and eventually step onto the global stage with confidence, even as media scrutiny intensified. Thomas frames the hysterectomy as an early manifestation of these traits: courage, foresight, and the ability to make difficult decisions independently. Interwoven throughout the narrative are moments of emotional depth. Thomas shares reflections on what it felt like to witness his daughter making such a profound choice at a young age. There were moments of quiet pride, moments of concern, and moments of reflection on the nature of parental love. These insights humanize both Thomas and Meghan, allowing the audience to connect emotionally and understand the stakes involved. As the chapter progresses, suspense builds. Thomas hints at the broader ramifications of the hysterectomy, how it affected Meghan's relationships, her private life, and the public narrative surrounding her later. He teases upcoming revelations about misunderstandings, family conflict, and emotional struggles that have never been fully disclosed. Each tease serves as a narrative hook, keeping the audience invested and eager to follow the unfolding story. Every family has its secrets, but some secrets carry weight that can shape relationships for years, sometimes decades. In the Markle family, the hysterectomy revelation was more than a personal health decision. It became a lens through which long-standing tensions, miscommunications, and hidden emotions were magnified. Thomas Markle now opens up about the ripple effects this deeply personal choice had on the family dynamic, revealing a world of private struggles that had never been fully understood by the public. Thomas begins by describing the immediate emotional strain. While Meghan approached the decision with maturity, the family had to navigate its implications delicately. Parents, siblings, and extended family members experienced a mixture of pride, concern, and confusion. Decisions about health, autonomy, and independence, especially for someone so young, can unsettle even the strongest familial bonds. Thomas shares candidly that the reactions were often unspoken, layered with emotion, and sometimes misinterpreted, setting the stage for misunderstandings that would reverberate in years to come. A central theme of this chapter is communication, or the lack thereof. Thomas recalls conversations that never happened, questions left unasked, and feelings left unexpressed. He admits that the pressures of protecting Meghan's privacy sometimes led to silence, creating emotional distance. While the decision was ultimately respected, the subtleties of family dynamics made processing it complicated. Some family members internalized their concerns, others felt excluded from important discussions, and the resulting tensions quietly built up over time. The narrative also delves into the strain that public perception added to private struggles. As Meghan's career began to flourish, media coverage intensified, casting family interactions in a spotlight that neither father nor daughter had requested. Thomas reflects on the challenges of watching private matters, already delicate and emotionally charged, become fodder for public consumption. Headlines, rumors, and speculation added layers of pressure, sometimes distorting reality and amplifying existing tensions. These external pressures intersected with internal family dynamics, creating a complex emotional web that would take years to untangle. Thomas further explores sibling relationships, recalling the impact on Meghan's brother and sister. While these bonds were rooted in love, they were not immune to strain. Differences in perspective, proximity to Meghan's personal decisions, and individual interpretations of events contributed to occasional misunderstandings. Thomas emphasizes that these are not extraordinary conflicts. They are human experiences intensified by circumstance. By sharing these anecdotes, he humanizes the Markle family, portraying them as real people grappling with emotions, pride, and love in the context of unprecedented scrutiny. The chapter also examines the emotional toll on Thomas himself. As a father, he had to reconcile pride in Meghan's independence with natural concerns for her well-being. He shares moments of introspection, recounting times when he questioned whether he had done enough, said the right things, or provided sufficient guidance. The emotional tension of balancing respect for autonomy with protective instincts is a recurring theme, offering viewers insight into the complexities of parental love under extraordinary circumstances. Interwoven with these reflections are subtle foreshadowings of future conflict. Thomas hints at later disagreements, miscommunications, and public controversies that were rooted in this period of familial adjustment. Each foreshadowed event serves to heighten suspense, keeping the audience engaged and anticipating the next revelations. Rhetorical questions: how do you navigate love, concern, and privacy when every decision is scrutinized? Invite viewers to emotionally engage and reflect on their own experiences. Humor and relatability are interspersed to balance the heavier emotional content. Thomas shares lighter family anecdotes, inside jokes, playful sibling interactions, and humorous misunderstandings that reveal the humanity of the family amidst tension. These moments provide levity, deepen character development, and maintain pacing, ensuring that viewers remain invested without being overwhelmed by drama. As the chapter progresses, Thomas begins to explore the broader consequences of secrecy. He reflects on how unspoken words, withheld emotions, and private decisions can inadvertently create distance and misunderstanding, even among those who love one another deeply. These insights build toward the chapter's climax, emphasizing the fragility of family relationships under pressure and the challenge of reconciling private choices with collective understanding. The chapter closes with a dramatic cliffhanger, setting the stage for the next installment. What started as a private, personal decision at 19 didn't stay private for long. Its ripple effects would touch every relationship, every interaction, and every public perception. And soon, the tensions that had simmered quietly would erupt in ways no one in the family, or the world, could have anticipated. As the story continues, Thomas Markle delves deeper into how Meghan's private decisions, including her hysterectomy, intertwined with long-standing family dynamics and led to significant emotional strain. He explains that while some reactions were subtle, their impact was profound, leaving invisible marks on relationships that only became evident as Meghan's life entered the public eye. Thomas recounts the period immediately following Meghan's decision. The family grappled with unspoken questions. How would this choice affect her future? Were there emotional consequences they had yet to see? The secrecy necessary to respect Meghan's autonomy created tension as different family members navigated their feelings privately, often leading to misunderstandings. Thomas reflects on how these dynamics sometimes manifested in small but meaningful ways, moments of withdrawal, miscommunication, or perceived distance. Siblings, in particular, experienced a mix of pride, confusion, and curiosity. Thomas recalls moments when Meghan's brother and sister tried to understand her choices, seeking guidance from parents or observing silently. Their interactions, though grounded in love, sometimes carried subtle undercurrents of tension, questions left unanswered, and emotions left unexplored. These familial strains were further complicated by Meghan's natural inclination toward independence, which occasionally created the perception of emotional distance, even though her love and care for family remained constant. Public perception added another layer of complexity. Thomas describes the unique challenges of raising a daughter whose personal choices could one day be scrutinized worldwide. Even before Meghan married into the royal family, media speculation about the Markle family added tension. Headlines distorted the nuances of family life, amplifying minor conflicts and creating narratives that were far from the truth. Thomas emphasizes that these external pressures intensified internal dynamics, forcing family members to navigate both private emotions and public assumptions simultaneously. One of the most poignant points Thomas makes is the emotional toll on himself. He shares candidly the guilt, worry, and frustration that accompanied observing his daughter make such a monumental decision at a young age. The challenge was balancing the instinct to protect with the need to respect autonomy. A tension, he says, many parents understand, yet rarely under such intense scrutiny. He recalls sleepless nights, moments of reflection, and internal debates about whether he had provided the right guidance or support, all while watching Meghan demonstrate remarkable resilience. The chapter also explores the long-term effects of secrecy and unspoken tensions. Thomas notes that the hysterectomy decision, while respected, became a silent thread running through family interactions. Its presence influenced conversations, perceptions, and even trust. Miscommunications emerged, sometimes small but cumulative, shaping emotional distance and fueling misunderstandings that would later resurface in public controversies. He emphasizes that this is not a story of blame, but of the complex reality of familial love, privacy, and differing emotional responses. Amidst these heavier revelations, Thomas provides moments of levity. He recounts humorous family memories, playful interactions, light-hearted disagreements, and moments when laughter temporarily eased tension. These anecdotes serve to humanize the narrative, reminding viewers that even in complicated circumstances, warmth and connection persist. Humor also keeps the pacing dynamic, balancing emotional intensity with relatable moments that maintain audience engagement. As the chapter builds toward its climax, Thomas foreshadows further revelations about misunderstandings that would later become public scandals. He hints at conflicts exacerbated by miscommunication, media distortion, and differing interpretations of intentions. These tensions, he explains, would later fuel dramatic narratives, portraying the family in ways that felt disconnected from reality. Each hint increases suspense, compelling viewers to continue seeking the full story behind Meghan's choices and their impact on the Markle family. Every story has its untold beginnings, moments hidden from public view that shape the person we eventually see. Meghan Markle's early life is no exception. Before the glitz of Hollywood, before the pomp of royalty, before every move she made was dissected by the world, there was a girl growing up behind closed doors, navigating ordinary struggles that few could ever imagine, yet already foreshadowing the extraordinary woman she would become. Thomas Markle, her father, paints a vivid picture of those formative years. He recalls a child full of curiosity, intelligence, and an early sense of independence that set her apart from her peers. Even as a young girl, Meghan displayed qualities that would later define her public persona. Confidence, a fierce sense of justice, and an ability to connect with people across different walks of life. But Thomas emphasizes that beneath that emerging strength was also vulnerability, a sensitivity shaped by family dynamics, societal expectations, and the unique pressures of growing up biracial in North America. The Markle household was far from perfect, yet it was filled with moments of love and connection. Thomas recounts mornings bustling with routine, family dinners where stories were shared, and the quiet sacrifices he and his then-wife made to provide stability. But these moments were punctuated by tensions, financial pressures, and the occasional conflict that naturally arises in any family. These experiences, he explains, laid the groundwork for Meghan's resilience and adaptability, traits that would later be tested on a global scale. School life, too, played a pivotal role. Thomas recalls instances of Meghan navigating both privilege and prejudice, learning early on the duality of human experience. She was bright, articulate, and ambitious, yet also acutely aware of social hierarchies and cultural expectations. These early lessons, Thomas suggests, honed her awareness of the world and shaped her interactions, providing the foundation for her later career in acting and advocacy. There were moments of triumph, awards, recognitions, and friendships, but also moments of challenge, misunderstandings, subtle exclusions, and the quiet sting of being judged for reasons beyond her control. Family dynamics further complicated her early years. While Thomas expresses immense pride in his daughter, he also recounts the challenges of maintaining a cohesive household. Divorce, relocation, and differing parenting styles created friction that Meghan experienced firsthand. These familial pressures, combined with her own ambitions and the weight of societal expectations, created a complex emotional landscape. Thomas emphasizes that understanding these early experiences is essential to understanding the choices Meghan made as she matured, including decisions about her health, autonomy, and personal relationships. The chapter also touches on Meghan's early exposure to media attention, even before her rise to fame. Publicity surrounding family events, school achievements, and local recognition introduced her to the concept of being observed, evaluated, and sometimes misrepresented. Thomas recalls feeling both protective and powerless, aware that the world's gaze would only intensify over time. These early encounters with attention and scrutiny planted seeds of awareness, caution, and strategic thinking that would serve her well in adulthood, but also contributed to the pressures that shaped her private decisions. Amidst these reflections, Thomas introduces a narrative thread that will become central to the story: Meghan's health and personal autonomy. He foreshadows the revelation about her hysterectomy at 19, explaining that the seeds of that decision were sown in her teenage years. By illustrating her formative environment, her family life, school experiences, and early awareness of public perception, he provides essential context that makes this later revelation both plausible and deeply human. This is not a sensationalized story. It is a portrait of a young woman making life-altering decisions in the context of family dynamics, societal pressures, and personal ambition. Thomas also delves into the emotional texture of Meghan's early life. He recounts small moments that reveal character: late-night conversations about aspirations, moments of introspection, the way she navigated friendships, and the choices she made to assert her independence. These anecdotes serve to humanize her, creating empathy and emotional engagement for the audience. Viewers are invited not merely to witness events, but to experience them vicariously, feeling the weight of expectation, the excitement of discovery, and the tension of navigating formative years under scrutiny. The chapter uses pacing and emotional rhythm to maintain engagement. Short, punchy sentences convey urgency and highlight dramatic moments, while longer, reflective passages provide depth, context, and narrative richness. Thomas interweaves humor, candid observations, and poignant reflections to create a dynamic storytelling flow that keeps viewers invested. He also uses rhetorical questions to engage the audience directly. Can you imagine being 17, already aware that every choice you make could one day be scrutinized by millions? How would you navigate that? As the chapter builds toward its climax, Thomas emphasizes the significance of Meghan's early autonomy and resilience. These qualities, he suggests, were instrumental in her ability to make the profound decisions that would later define her life. The hysterectomy at 19, the pursuit of a high-profile acting career, and eventual entry into royalty were all rooted in the same traits: courage, self-awareness, and an unyielding desire to chart her own path. And just as viewers begin to absorb the gravity of her early experiences, Thomas leaves them on a cliffhanger, teasing the most personal and shocking revelation yet. But the choice Meghan made at 19, one that few could ever imagine, would ripple through her life in ways none of us could have predicted. And the world is only now beginning to understand the full impact. As we move deeper into Meghan's formative years, Thomas Markle elaborates on the private struggles that rarely made headlines. Behind the polished public image was a young woman negotiating identity, family expectation, and emerging independence. The duality of her experience, being both ordinary and extraordinary, was a constant theme in her early life. Thomas emphasizes that understanding these dynamics is essential to grasp the significance of her later decisions, including the deeply personal choice she made at 19. One of the central threads Thomas explores is Meghan's sense of responsibility from an early age. He recounts instances where she took on roles beyond her years, caring for younger family members, mediating conflicts, or assisting with household responsibilities. These experiences, while seemingly mundane, instilled a sense of agency and resilience. They also shaped her capacity to navigate pressure, make calculated decisions, and endure scrutiny, all qualities that would define her adulthood. Thomas also addresses the challenges Meghan faced socially and culturally. Growing up biracial, she often encountered subtle forms of exclusion and bias. These experiences, he suggests, strengthened her empathy and broadened her perspective, while also contributing to the careful self-presentation she later adopted in public life. He recalls moments where Meghan expressed frustration, confusion, or even quiet defiance, demonstrating an early awareness that the world did not always reflect fairness or understanding. These formative lessons, Thomas emphasizes, were foundational in her development of emotional intelligence, self-reliance, and assertiveness. Amidst these challenges, Thomas shares anecdotes highlighting Meghan's curiosity and determination. From school projects to early career explorations, she exhibited a drive and focus that set her apart. He recalls moments when she would stay up late researching, writing, or practicing skills, displaying a dedication that bordered on obsessive, but was fueled by ambition and the desire to create her own path. These glimpses of early determination foreshadowed the resilience required for the pivotal decisions she would make as a young adult. Health and personal autonomy emerge as recurring themes. Thomas hints at conversations and moments when Meghan expressed concern about her future, her body, and her life choices. Without divulging the full extent of the later hysterectomy revelation yet, he frames these moments as a foreshadowing. A young woman learning to weigh risks, assess consequences, and make difficult choices privately, away from public scrutiny. It is a testament to her independence and foresight, traits that would define both her personal and professional trajectories. Thomas also addresses the complexity of the family environment. Divorce, relocation, and differing parenting approaches created a backdrop of emotional tension, yet within it were moments of tenderness and connection. He recounts specific examples: late-night discussions about dreams and fears, instances of shared laughter, and times when family support became the anchor in challenging moments. These stories humanize Meghan, presenting her not just as a public figure but as a daughter, a sister, and a young woman shaped by intimate familial experiences. The chapter emphasizes the contrast between public perception and private reality. While media coverage often portrayed Meghan's upbringing in simplistic or sensationalized terms, the reality was far more nuanced. Thomas seeks to bridge that gap, providing context, depth, and emotional authenticity. He frames Meghan's choices, both personal and professional, as informed by early lessons in responsibility, resilience, and independence, rather than by superficial ambition or external pressure. As the chapter builds, Thomas introduces suspenseful foreshadowing. He hints that the choice Meghan made at 19, her hysterectomy, was influenced by the very experiences and lessons described throughout this chapter. Each narrative element connects. Early independence, family responsibility, social awareness, and personal resilience converge, setting the stage for a decision that would have profound implications. Humor and warmth are interspersed to maintain narrative balance. Thomas recalls lighter moments from Meghan's youth. Playful interactions with siblings, witty remarks that revealed intelligence and personality, and instances where her curiosity led to amusing outcomes. These moments provide relief from the emotional weight while reinforcing relatability, ensuring viewers remain engaged on both an emotional and narrative level. The chapter closes with a dramatic tease, leaving the audience eager for the next installment. Thomas emphasizes that Meghan's early life was only the beginning, a foundation upon which life-altering decisions would be built. The audience is left with anticipation. And then, at 19, Meghan made a choice that would ripple through her life in ways none of us could have imagined. A choice that was intensely personal, profoundly private, and now, finally, being revealed to the world. Few moments in a person's life carry the weight that Meghan Markle's decision at 19 would carry. A choice so private, so personal, and yet so impactful that it would echo through every aspect of her life afterward. Thomas Markle, her father, finally breaks the silence, revealing the truth behind the medical decision that had remained hidden for decades. Meghan reportedly underwent a hysterectomy at the age of 19. This revelation is shocking, not just because of its personal nature, but because of the emotional and societal complexities surrounding such a choice at such a young age. Thomas explains that this decision was never taken lightly. Even at 19, Meghan had a remarkable sense of foresight and independence, qualities that both concerned and impressed him. The procedure, he emphasizes, was not about convenience, fame, or any external pressure. It was a deeply personal choice that reflected Meghan's desire to take control of her own body and her future. He recounts conversations with her at the time, moments when she weighed options, asked questions, and wrestled with the profound implications of such a permanent decision. These were moments of maturity and courage far beyond her years. To understand the gravity of this choice, Thomas urges viewers to imagine the context. At 19, most young adults are still exploring their independence, testing boundaries, and envisioning possibilities. Meghan, however, was confronted with a decision that would permanently alter her physical life, her reproductive future, and the trajectory of her personal identity. Thomas recounts his initial reaction: pride mixed with concern, admiration tempered by fear for her well-being. As a father, he was acutely aware of the magnitude of the choice, yet he also recognized her autonomy and the seriousness with which she approached it. Thomas further explains that Meghan's choice was influenced by multiple factors: family dynamics, personal health concerns, and a deep awareness of her own life goals all played a role. He shares that Meghan, even as a teenager, demonstrated an unusual clarity of thought and self-awareness, qualities that guided her decision-making process. She approached the matter analytically, consulting medical professionals, weighing long-term consequences, and ultimately making a decision that reflected her values and priorities. The hysterectomy, Thomas stresses, is not merely a medical detail. It is emblematic of Meghan's independence, resilience, and capacity for self-determination. He argues that understanding this choice is essential to understanding her later life decisions. Her career, her relationships, and her approach to public scrutiny. By framing the procedure within the context of her early development and personal growth, Thomas paints a portrait of a young woman making empowered, albeit profoundly difficult, decisions. Thomas also addresses the societal implications of such a choice. For many, the notion of a 19-year-old opting for a hysterectomy is shocking, raising questions, judgments, and sometimes moral debate. Yet he stresses that Meghan's decision was informed, deliberate, and entirely personal. He challenges viewers to consider how society perceives young women's autonomy, especially in matters of health and bodily agency. Through this lens, the revelation becomes not just a story about Meghan, but a commentary on broader issues of independence, personal choice, and the pressures young women face in navigating life's most consequential decisions. The chapter intertwines emotional narrative with suspense. Thomas recounts the private moments surrounding the decision, late-night discussions, quiet reflections, and the emotional weight of telling family members. He shares how Meghan handled these conversations with maturity, honesty, and composure, even as the emotional stakes remained high. These intimate insights humanize her, revealing not a public persona, but a young woman confronting profound personal responsibility. Humor and relatability are subtly woven into the narrative. Thomas recalls moments where Meghan's wit and intelligence surfaced even in stressful situations, providing brief respites of levity. These anecdotes ensure the audience remains emotionally engaged without becoming overwhelmed by the gravity of the revelation. They also reinforce her multidimensional character, serious, determined, yet capable of humor and lightness, even in difficult circumstances. The chapter maintains momentum by foreshadowing further revelations. Thomas hints that the hysterectomy is not an isolated story but interconnected with other aspects of Meghan's life, her career ambitions, relationships, and later decisions regarding privacy and family. By planting these seeds, he ensures that viewers remain invested, eager to understand not just the procedure itself, but its broader ramifications and how it shaped the trajectory of her life. As the chapter builds toward its climax, Thomas leaves the audience with a reflective question. Can you imagine making a decision at 19 that changes your body, your future, and your life, knowing that the world will never fully understand why? This rhetorical question creates an emotional connection, allowing viewers to empathize with the weight of Meghan's choice while anticipating the deeper implications to come in the next chapter. And just as the audience begins to grasp the enormity of the decision, Thomas teases the next layer of revelation: how this choice intersected with family dynamics, public perception, and Meghan's emerging path toward independence. The full story, he hints, will reveal challenges, misunderstandings, and emotional complexities that no one outside the family has ever known. As Thomas Markle continues, the story shifts from the mere fact of the procedure to the emotional and familial consequences that followed. The hysterectomy at 19 was more than a medical decision. It was a turning point in Meghan's life that reverberated through her relationships, her sense of self, and the way she navigated the world. Thomas reflects on the delicate balance between protecting his daughter and respecting her autonomy, and the tension this created within the family. Thomas recalls the immediate aftermath of the decision. Meghan handled the situation with a level of maturity that astonished him. She understood the gravity, consulted medical professionals thoroughly, and took the time to process the implications for her health, relationships, and future goals. Yet, the secrecy surrounding such a personal matter was inevitable. Thomas notes that, at the time, discussing the decision openly, even within the family, was emotionally charged. Privacy was paramount, yet the choice itself became a silent force, shaping interactions, expectations, and perceptions for years to come. Family reactions were complex. While Thomas expresses pride in Meghan's independence, he also acknowledges the emotional challenges. Her mother, Doria Ragland, played a pivotal role in supporting Meghan's decision, offering empathy and guidance. Thomas, as her father, grappled with concern, admiration, and the instinct to protect. He reflects on the nuanced dynamics, the push and pull of parental concern versus respect for autonomy, the tension of wanting to guide while recognizing that this was a choice only Meghan could make. The hysterectomy, Thomas emphasizes, also influenced Meghan's sense of identity. Decisions surrounding her reproductive health at a young age were not merely medical. They were deeply personal and emotional. Thomas shares that Meghan experienced moments of contemplation, introspection, and even vulnerability, which shaped her understanding of independence and resilience. These experiences, he suggests, contributed to her later poise, her capacity for handling scrutiny, and her determination to define her own narrative amidst external pressures. Media speculation, although it came later, is another critical aspect. Thomas discusses how public perception has a tendency to distort private choices, turning personal health decisions into sensationalized narratives. He stresses that understanding Meghan's choice requires empathy and context. It was made responsibly, thoughtfully, and in alignment with her values. By framing the hysterectomy within the broader context of her early life, Thomas encourages viewers to consider the human story behind the headlines rather than accepting the simplified or judgmental narratives often circulated by media outlets. The chapter also explores the connection between Meghan's personal choices and her professional ambitions. Thomas recalls how her early maturity and autonomy, exemplified by decisions like the hysterectomy, translated into her career. She approached challenges with calculated risk, resilience, and a strong sense of self. These qualities enabled her to navigate a competitive acting industry and eventually step onto the global stage with confidence, even as media scrutiny intensified. Thomas frames the hysterectomy as an early manifestation of these traits: courage, foresight, and the ability to make difficult decisions independently. Interwoven throughout the narrative are moments of emotional depth. Thomas shares reflections on what it felt like to witness his daughter making such a profound choice at a young age. There were moments of quiet pride, moments of concern, and moments of reflection on the nature of parental love. These insights humanize both Thomas and Meghan, allowing the audience to connect emotionally and understand the stakes involved. As the chapter progresses, suspense builds. Thomas hints at the broader ramifications of the hysterectomy, how it affected Meghan's relationships, her private life, and the public narrative surrounding her later. He teases upcoming revelations about misunderstandings, family conflict, and emotional struggles that have never been fully disclosed. Each tease serves as a narrative hook, keeping the audience invested and eager to follow the unfolding story. As Meghan Markle transitioned from adolescence into early adulthood, her personal life became a labyrinth of relationships, ambitions, and private battles, most of which remained hidden from public view. Thomas Markle reveals for the first time how the choices she made, including the pivotal decision about her health at 19, influenced not only her path, but also the dynamics of her personal connections. This chapter explores the intersection of love, secrecy, and personal growth, illustrating a young woman learning to navigate complex emotional terrain. Thomas begins by emphasizing Meghan's independence. From a young age, she exhibited a remarkable ability to make decisions on her own terms, often weighing the consequences carefully before acting. This sense of autonomy was both a strength and a source of tension in her relationships. Those close to her, friends, romantic partners, and family, often struggled to reconcile her strong-willed nature with their own expectations. Thomas recalls that while her independence sometimes created friction, it also fostered admiration, respect, and a deep sense of self-awareness. Romantic relationships, in particular, reveal the delicate balance Meghan maintained between personal desire and self-protection. Thomas shares that she approached early relationships with caution, wary of vulnerability, yet eager for connection. Her experiences, he explains, were shaped by a combination of early familial pressures, societal expectations, and her own understanding of personal boundaries. These formative encounters were crucial in teaching her negotiation, compromise, and emotional resilience, skills that would later be indispensable in navigating high-profile relationships and media scrutiny. Thomas also touches on the emotional impact of secrecy. Meghan's need to protect certain aspects of her life. Medical decisions, family tensions, and personal struggles often required a level of discretion unusual for someone her age. While this discretion safeguarded her privacy, it also created internal pressures. She frequently carried emotional burdens privately, making personal sacrifices that were invisible to those around her. Thomas notes that this duality, balancing personal desires with the need for discretion, shaped her identity and informed how she interacted with the world. Friendships, too, played a critical role in Meghan's development. Thomas recalls moments where close friends provided support, encouragement, and perspective during challenging times. These relationships offered a space for